Hey, how you doing? What you up to? What you feel like? It's Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Friday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown, the safe space where we set oppression ablaze and we believe that something better can be possible on the other side. Today is absolutely one of those shows. How's everybody doing today? I'm going to imagine it's a bit of a somber day for people across the world who love hip hop music, who are really mourning the passing of a legend today. Of course, you all have already heard that DMX has died today up in a hospital in White Plains, New York, after being pretty much in a coma, according to reports, or in a semi-vegetative state for almost a week. Also reports that possibly the heart attack that he had was caused in part by substance abuse. So listen, guys, a little later on in the show, we are going to actually take some proper time to remember the legacy of DMX. And when I talk about legacy, I'm talking about legacy. Okay. I've seen some random social media posts that say DMX wasn't a legend. I don't hear his music on the radio. He only had 2 songs. Kids, you kind of had to be there. Okay. DMX sold a lot of records. I mean, tens of millions of records. I have not verified this, but I saw one post that said that he had sold north of 90 million. And I'm not sure that's the exact number, but it wouldn't shock me if that was the case for worldwide album sales. I mean, this is back when people still had to physically buy their music, and it was something you could touch and hold. And he sold a lot of records. He was also an actor, part of, to me, like that second wave of rapper actors. And he sold out concerts around the world, but, he had his troubles. And clearly, the criminal justice system failed DMX. DMX was also part of that rapper class that had that New York, rat squad on them. There was a whole unit within the NYPD dedicated to fucking with rappers. And I believe that he was very much a victim of that. So we're going to get into the legacy of DMX, his untimely passing at the age of 50, and the mark that he left on hip hop. So yeah, rest in peace to DMX. But guys, here on Burn Down with Kim Brown, one topic that we have been talking about with some regularity has to do with the labor movement and organizing. It is cool to unionize, y'all. I am so very excited about this. And we have had so many different labor stories that we have been reporting on, and we have some updates. A couple things I want to get up to speed about. First and foremostly, the Amazon unionization effort in Bessemer, Alabama. Well, a number of reports, let's check out A1 Tunde. A number of reports indicate that perhaps that unionization effort has failed, but there are some objections being filed. This tweet here, breaking news, the RWDSU announces that it will file objections to overturn the Amazon election, saying the election should be set aside because conduct by the employer created an atmosphere of confusion, coercion, and fear of reprisals, thus interfering with the employees' freedom of choice. I believe that is from, hold on, let me pull up a screen. I think that gentleman is a labor reporter for Huffington Post. Yes. If we could also get a 2 there, Tunde, because also being reported that Amazon has just secured a majority of the votes. Like I said, it appears as though Amazon has been ruled victorious, although I don't think the NRLB, the National Labor Relations Board, has actually made a formalized statement. If I'm wrong about that, Jean-Pierre, please let me know. But this tweet, breaking, Amazon has secured the majority of the votes, over 1,600, in the Bessemer Amazon Union. The NLRB has not yet declared the company victorious. Howsoever, the union has indicated that they will file objections. As we just said, the RDWSU has confirmed that they will file some objections. A 3 there, Mr. Tunde. The reporter, Jameson, says that they can confirm that Reuters is reporting that Amazon challenged about less than 500 of the ballots cast. Amazon challenged nearly 4 times as many as the union. The union is down to 637 votes, almost halfway through the count. So they will need to close that gap for those challenged ballots to come into play. So while this is not formally over, it is looking as though Amazon is going to be successful in their union busting efforts in Bessemer. However, guys, do not be discouraged, because number one, Amazon spent a shit ton of money trying to bust this union effort. Number two, as Max Alvarez from the Working People podcast, when he was on the show talking to us about his reporting when he went to Bessemer, they're using all kinds of dirty tricks. They were paying the police force in order to be a presence at the Bessemer location to intimidate workers there. Also had the traffic lights reconfigured so organizers could not approach people to tell them about the union efforts. I've also seen a story regarding the placement of the mail box, the ballot receiving box that's supposed to have been from the U.S. Postal Service that was on the grounds of the Amazon plant in Bessemer, and how it's some chicanery with that. So Amazon cheated throughout this whole thing, and not to say that that was not to be expected, but I think that the RWDSU is going to try to reorganize and give this another attempt, guys. And this is, again, if you look at the history of labor organizing movements, really throughout the country, throughout the history of all this here in the United States, a lot of these efforts have failed and have been retried and have eventually succeeded. So I think the people and the workers there in Bessemer, Alabama should really be extremely proud of themselves, because they were small, they were Black, they were underpaid, they were badly treated, and a billionaire was scared as shit about what these poor Black folks was going to do once they got organized. So the fact that Jeff Bezos, one of the most rich and powerful people on this planet, spent tens of millions of dollars to bust up this union, really instead of just paying the people what they were asking for, giving them conditions of which they were asking for, of which he totally can afford, Amazon can afford as well. He chose to stomp on this effort. But I don't believe that this is going to be the last that we're going to hear about Amazon workers trying to unionize. So we want to send love and solidarity to those Amazon workers really across the country. But Bessemer, y'all the real MVPs today, baby. So give it up for Bessemer, Alabama, the Amazon workers there. Shout out to the RWDSU as well, and More Perfect Union and journalists like Kim Kelly who have been and Max Alvarez who have been following this story extensively. So that's not the end of like how hard people are going like of this past year. I really feel as though the pandemic galvanized people about taking proactive steps against so many different kinds of injustices. And of course, a lot of this organizing and work was happening pre-pandemic, but I feel as though COVID in 2020 really kind of jump-started a lot of shit. A lot of people's like, we're not dealing with this here going forward. Of course, like I said, the fight for $15 an hour minimum wage at the federal level, that fight is still being waged. And when it comes to organizing, Toonday, if we could please take a look at what number is this here? That would be A4, sir. Can we look at A4? Because now I don't. Do you guys remember this? We talked to a member of the graduate employees organization at the University of Michigan. This was last year when they were organizing their efforts around working conditions. Well, according to the Graduate Workers Student Union, the Graduate Student Workers Organizers at Columbia University, they have voted, and they said that their strike authorization vote results are in, and over 96% of them have voted to strike. So that is pretty remarkable. And there are a number of graduate student organizations of workers nationwide at colleges big and small saying that, listen, Without us, without the graduate student workers, your university don't run. These young people are underpaid, they are overworked, and they are overburdened relative to the amount of compensation that they receive. And even beyond that, guys, now I know some of us are just a tiny bit outside of that college age range, just a little bit. But I know when I was in college, it was expected that your ass was going to get an internship. And if your internship happened to be paid, well, then you were just lucky, right? Most internships were absolutely not paid. But think about how much free labor companies and organizations get out of interns. Now, interning is cool if you can afford to work for free, but we know that a lot of poorer students, a lot of first-generation college students, students of color, Black students, immigrant students, they don't really have that leisure to be able to set aside 10 to 20 hours weekly for unpaid labor. So there is a movement to pay the interns. And I want to run this video clip for y'all real quick. Just to give you an idea. No, don't hit the snooze button. I'm explaining this to y'all because even though you yourself may be out of collegiate intern age range, chances are you got some youngins up behind you, either your kids, your nieces, your nephews, your mentees, or your children are approaching. Ooh, that's thunder. That's thunder in the DMV, y'all. So everybody simmer down. But your kids are approaching that college age threshold. So this is an issue that actually we need to be focusing on and paying attention to, because we should be trying to resolve this for the current students who are trying to make their way into the world, and for the kids that are coming up behind them. So let's take a quick peek, Lord have mercy, a quick peek, if we could, at this quick video clip. Tunde, it is B1, please, sir.
$6,800. That's how much it costs one college student to have an unpaid internship over the summer.
My circumstances have changed and I can no longer afford to work for free.
How does anyone expect college students who are already drowning in debt to then fork up that cash? An internship isn't just something you do to pass the time over summer break. Internships lead to jobs, real jobs. 63% of students who complete an internship receive a job offer after they graduate. But there are two kinds of internships, paid and unpaid. And thanks to new guidelines established by the Department of Labor in January 2018, it's now easier than ever before for companies to just not pay their interns.
What?
Students who can't afford unpaid internships get left behind. And that's really screwed up. Most students, especially minority and first-generation college students, can't afford to just fork up $6,800. What do you think happens to organizations who offer only unpaid internships? This. Anything wrong with this image? That's because only a select, privileged group of people can afford to work for free. But the good news is, there's a simple solution to this problem. Just pay your interns.
Oh my gosh, drag her, honey. Did you see that picture of Paul Ryan in his all-white class of interns? Like, yes, that is exactly what happens when only people of privilege have access to these opportunities and can afford to work unpaid. Join me today, guys, in welcoming our guest. We are joined with Regina Monge. Regina Monge is the external relations lead from the organization is called Pay Our Interns, with the leading organization fighting for the increase in the amount of paid internships across all work sectors. Regina, thank you so much for being here, dear. We appreciate you making some time.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim, and making sure to highlight this issue and how it really does impact and reproduce economic and racial justice issues.
Absolutely, because when I even heard about the Pay Our Interns movement, I got to thinking, and I said, I had several internships in college, and they were unpaid. And on some occasions, in some semesters, I was juggling an internship and a job and a full-time class load, and that's not easy, and that produces a tremendous amount of stress on interns and college students in general, which is already usually a pretty stressful time. So talk to us about the Pay Our Interns movement. How was this born? What was this born out of?
Absolutely. So Pay Our Interns was founded in 2016 by our two co-founders, Carlos Marquera and Guillermo Kramer. And they were two unpaid interns that were in college in Washington, D.C. And they worked multiple jobs and got grants because they were Pell Grant eligible and were able to intern at places like the White House, Congress, the European Parliament. And those were all really opportunities that changed their career trajectories. But when they started talking to friends and mentees, they realized that a lot of folks were having to pass up similar opportunities because they couldn't afford to take on those responsibilities. I know for me personally, I was lucky that my university was able to support grants in order to help subsidize my unpaid internships. And I was also able to take on more work through my on-campus job in order to supplement those experiences. But Pay Our Interns was really founded because our founders realized that unpaid internships and the expectation that folks have to intern in order to be employable, but also are expected to take on the costs incurred by interning for free. Because it's not just that you're not getting paid, it's the opportunity cost of not having a job that pays you hourly. And it's also paying the transportation, paying to make sure that you have appropriate clothes to wear, which is not always true for students that are interning for the first time. So they started the organization and they've been able to do a lot of advocacy around that issue to change the way people see interns and expect and the expectations placed on them, but also to advocate for them to get paid.
And thank you for just jogging my memory right there. I remember when I was in college back in the 1970s. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that old, but I had to turn down an internship opportunity in New York City for that exact reason. Because I remember I was like, well, you know, where am I going to live? Like, if this is an unpaid internship, how am I supposed to provide for myself in New York, you know, for a duration of a summer? How am I supposed to eat if this internship is unpaid? So I can absolutely see how, and having experienced that myself, how people sometimes do have to forego opportunities for lack of resources and unpaid opportunities. Now, part of our staff here, we have the youngest member of our staff is Genevieve. She is not that far removed from being in college. So I asked Genevieve to contribute questions to this conversation because she's much closer to this experience than I am, even though I did experience it. But the first question I wanted to ask Regina is, you know, many internships, particularly those related to politics and journalism, are typically unpaid. So what does this say about the likelihood of a student who wants to get into fields like politics and journalism but aren't able to accept these unpaid internships? What is the trajectory there for people who have to turn stuff down, I guess?
Sure. So unfortunately, that's a really common experience. And that's why a lot of times public service internships and journalism related internships they have an overrepresentation of white folks and people from more privileged backgrounds, higher socioeconomic statuses. A lot of the times, if you think about, especially the context now, Black and Latino students are more likely to have financial obligations for their families, but also to have to pay to afford things like rent, work. And so when they are making a choice about whether or not they're able to intern, a lot of times they have to make a choice about whether or not they're going to be able to contribute to their families, whether or not they're going to be able to pay their utilities bills, or if they're going to advance their careers. And so a lot of times what we see is that students have to opt into other jobs, which of course any and all work makes you more employable, right? But jobs that maybe are in the retail industry or maybe are not as directly related to their field, which gives their peers who are able to take those unpaid internships a leg up when it comes to hiring. And one of the things that I think is important to talk about is that when we talk about that statistic about people being, you know, interns getting hired 60% of that time, that is true for paid interns. The percentage of like conversion from internship to job is much lower for folks that intern for free. So if you're accepting an unpaid internship, really the likelihood that you'll get hired is not that much higher than if you didn't take on that internship, which makes the calculus about do I work to meet my needs or do I work to advance my career a little more difficult.
I'm curious, Regina, what fields are more likely or what industries are more likely to pay interns? You know, Genevieve raised an excellent point about politics and journalism specifically, not paying their interns, and I can absolutely attest to that. But what fields or what sectors are more likely to pay their interns? Is it people like who have like specialized skills, maybe like accounting or the legal field? Where are you most likely to get paid if you're an intern?
Sure. So some of the fields are like architecture, STEM, tech companies often do a lot to pay their interns. And so something to think about is, the more science hard, stereotypically masculine fields are often the ones in which there are paid opportunities. The more liberal arts related fields, the arts, public service, teaching, social work, those are fields in which students are expected to intern either in order to graduate or in order to kind of enter their career choice. And so there's a lot of racial and gendered ways to look at those fields. But there's no representation of there's a lot of paid opportunities in tech and finance and those sectors.
Yeah, those sound pretty much a lot, overwhelmingly white and male, I would imagine, by just the fields that we're talking about. Tunde, if we could please pop up B2 and then have B3 on the ready. Regina, Pay Your Interns did a study about who Congress pays, talking about, speaking of fields that do not pay their interns. Congress does not pay their interns, which is shameful. But you all did an extensive examination of congressional payroll records. And you tweeted here, and everybody take a look at this graphic. B2, we just released our Who Congress Pays report, the first ever audit of the Internship Fund, which raised questions about the inclusivity of a key pipeline. Of the 3,822 paid interns we found, 76% were white. What? What is going on? And these are congressional interns. Yes. So 76% of the congressional interns out of over 3,800 were white. And if we could look at B3, Tunde, Pay Our Interns spent 10 months reviewing the 8,000 payroll records and analyzing the data, which showed that out of those over 3,800 paid internships from April to September of 2019, 76% of them were white, 6.7% were Black, nearly 8% were Latino, another 8% were Asian Pacific Islanders, and 0.03% were Native Americans. Regina, these are appalling numbers. Talk to us about, the process you all went through in order to arrive at these conclusions about this data. And what does that say about who is getting opportunities within the halls of power in Washington?
Absolutely. So our research team did a really thorough job of making sure to look into all of the interns on the Hill that got paid. So this graph represents the demographics of folks that received a paycheck for interning in Congress. One of the exciting things and one of the more positive numbers that came out of this report were that 90% of congressional offices are using the funding allotted for them to pay interns. So in 2016, when Pay Our Interns released their initial report, we found that only 10% of offices even paid interns, whether that was an hourly wage or if that was a stipend. And so now 90% of offices use that money to pay interns. And what we found was that 76% of those folks were white. One of the other things that we found that is relevant is that most of the people that were able to secure paid internships on the Hill actually attended private universities. And none of the folks that we surveyed actually attended community colleges, which is another thing to kind of look at. And so what this shows is that there is movement. Congress has bought into the fact that interns need to be paid. And now really what needs to happen is their programs need to be implemented more equitably, because what we don't want to happen and what we're cautioning with this report is that if Congress doesn't do a good job of equitably implementing internship programs by prioritizing paying folks that otherwise wouldn't be able to participate, if they are not proactively reaching out to minority serving institutions, then they are using taxpayer dollars in order to reproduce inequality around racial and economic lines. And in Congress, it's very easy to see the connection about why it matters to diversify our interns in Congress. If you look at Congresswoman Presley, she started out as an intern in the office that she now holds. She's a huge champion of the effort to diversify interns on the Hill in order to create that pipeline for folks, because those people are going to be the people doing policy work around things like SNAP or public education funding, and folks that are impacted by programs that the government provides need to be the ones making decisions, because they have the lived experience it takes in order to make smart choices. So that's why the work is so important. We're excited that folks are using the funds. We were able to advocate for over $48 million in funding to go towards paid internships, which we're really proud of. And that's created over 12,000 opportunities to get paid while interning on the Hill. But obviously there's still work to do, because we need to make sure that those that need it the most are the ones receiving the funds.
That's right. I mean, and those Hill opportunities are extremely competitive. And it's a lot of times it's about connections, right? It's about who you know. And if you are from a marginalized community and, you don't know your congressperson personally, it may be difficult to get those opportunities. But even if you are able to get those opportunities, I mean, you need the money in order to live and eat in Washington, D.C., which is not cheap. And that is amazing. Congratulations for you guys advocating for that funding for Hill interns. That is a very big accomplishment. Another aspect about interning for free, unpaid internships, companies and organizations will often say that, hey, we can't pay you, but this internship could result in college credit for you. Has that been a way to normalize unpaid internships with this, quid pro quo of college credit? I don't even remember ever receiving any college credit for my internships. But that is a way that companies, I suppose, make it palatable for undergrads or college students. Like, hey, no, you won't get any money for this, but you will get college credit.
Absolutely. That is something that we see a lot of. But one of the things to note is that, I went to a private university on a scholarship, but I still went to a private university. And so let's say I was taking on a 3-credit course load to get credit for my internship. That would mean that I'd be paying tuition on 3 credits in order to work for free. So that makes it very expensive. And I know from my personal experience and from experience of folks that I went to college with, a lot of the times students that decided to take an unpaid internship decided not to report it for credit because they didn't want the additional tuition expense in order to get credit for working for free.
Sounds about right. Like I said, I've been out of college quite a while, but everything you're saying is kind of ringing true, because I remember I had several internships and I don't remember reporting any of them to my university for credit. Because
why pay more to work for free?
Come on now. That's why we send the kids to college to think, right? We need the kids to be able to put it together. Another question I have for you, Regina, in cases where individuals feel as though it is in their best interest to take an unpaid internship in order to advance their careers, what means are they having to resort to in order to fund themselves?
Sure. So obviously, one of the most common ways is folks rely on their families, which is why unpaid internships recreate some issues, because if you don't have a family safety net, if you don't have a university with a career center that can allow you to get a grant in order to subsidize your unpaid internships, a lot of times folks are having to work multiple jobs so they'll work a full-time internship for free, and then they have to work at night in order to make ends meet, or they are having to take out loans, which is interesting, especially for folks that care about student debt. The people that are less likely to be able to basically take on unpaid internships are also the folks that end up graduating with more debt. But a lot of times people have to take out either educational or personal loans in order to be able to afford to live and kind of take a shot at their job and their career field by taking unpaid internships. So people are having to take on a lot of extra work, which can sometimes even cause grades to slip, and also just be incredibly difficult to manage. If you're a full-time college student, you're working, let's say 10 to 20 hours a week at an unpaid internship, and then you're also working about the same in order to meet your basic needs and also to be able to afford the cost of an unpaid internship. It can be a lot and take a toll on mental health as well.
I agree with that fully because, our culture in general, this, don't sleep, grind culture, or what, rise and grind, all that goofy stuff that you see on social media from people start posting at 6 o'clock in the morning, like, if you ain't first, you're last, or whatever kind of ridiculous little mantras, to pep ourselves up to go out into this capitalist, exploitative labor world to survive, right? And when you're talking about, young people, young college students, even middle young people, mid 20s, the 25ers, and plus, it is extremely a lot of pressure to be able to, worry about your course load. If you're looking at, post undergrad opportunities, that is an additional stressor. But also, this whole issue about trying to get work experience. And people will say all kinds of crazy things to college students, like, well, you got to do what you got to do. But, all of us ain't doing it from the same level of, resourcefulness, right? Like it's easier for someone who comes from for example, like a professional 2-parent or 2-income household to be able to deal or work with a 15 an hour a week unpaid internship because they don't have to worry about paying their rent or, money for food, et cetera, like that. So when we're looking at these fields and the opportunities for interns to transition into the workplace, if the research that you all did about the Hill internships are any indication, that is a reason why so many fields are still overwhelmingly white and male. What else has your data and research, and I guess just general observation, sort of borne that out also?
It absolutely has. And that's why we have done a lot of work when it comes to the public sector. But that's why we're focusing on ending unpaid internships across all sectors, because we're seeing an overrepresentation of white men at the heads of Fortune 500 companies. We're seeing an overrepresentation of them in Congress, of course, and in journalism, in a lot of fields that really impact the way our culture frames our histories. Especially right now at this moment when we are, post or starting to come out of the COVID-19 crisis, when people are starting to talk about the economy reopening, we need to really address the fact that the people that were hurt the most were Black women who suffered the most job loss. Latinos, 60% of Latinos saw a decrease were either lost their jobs, or they had less hours. And so when we're talking about the students that are graduating into this economy, they're going to experience a lot of economic consequences that came from not having the opportunity to intern after graduating, and also going into an economy that's going to have a whole bunch of people that are trying to re-enter the workforce. And so those folks whose families were impacted the most by the economic crisis are also going to have the hardest time re-entering. And unpaid internships are an added hurdle. But then again, we're seeing that paid internships, if they're implemented equitably and done in a way that pay folks not just a stipend, but a living wage, that are done in a way where folks are recruiting from organizations that have students of color that are eager to do the work, maybe that they might not have the network to get the introduction to an employer, but they want to be in the field. If folks are doing this work, that is a way for companies who maybe previously over the summer had a, come to Jesus moment and we're talking about their investment in diversity and equity. a way that they can diversify their talent pipelines is paying interns, is recruiting from minority serving institutions. Another thing that I think people don't really connect is the wage gap. Women are overrepresented in fields that have unpaid internships. And so if you care about the wage gap, it's important to make sure to make paid internships available at your employer. Same with student debt. It's important to kind of think about how the valuing of young people is reflected in hiring practices.
And it also always boils down to the fact that all work should be compensated. All work should be compensated. I mean, there's really no way around that. And Regina, you know, there's a young Black woman in my neighborhood who yesterday mentioned in conversation about how at her internship, all the other workers, because you know everything is starting to reopen now because of the proliferation of these vaccines for COVID-19, which I guess is good. I mean, it is good, but you know, and so we're still very much in a tenuous spot. But she mentioned in conversation that at her internship, all of the employees there were offered the vaccine, but the interns weren't. And she said, you know, it felt really racist. And I thought that was very, you know, ironic that she would even mention this the day before you and I were going to have this conversation, because at the end of the day, this is about exploiting people's labor and using people's youth and perhaps their level of education against them in a way like, hey, you're not very old, you know, you don't have a family, you know, all these other reasons that people use not to pay, you know, late teens and 20 somethings, that they don't have all these responsibilities when in fact, some of them absolutely do. And that they don't have the experience nor the education qualifications that would justify paying them. Talk to me about how, you know, just the concept of paying our interns is a step in a larger movement to make sure that all labor is paid. There is no reason really for people to work for free in the 21st century, regardless of their age or level of education.
Absolutely. The movement to pay interns is largely about getting folks to value interns as people, valuing their labor and contributions, because they are doing work. And it's also about making sure that those workers are protected. Something that is important to note is that if you're an unpaid intern, you are not protected against harassment. So you don't have legal recourse if something happens in the workplace. Like you can't file suit to defend yourself because the employer doesn't have a responsibility to protect your civil rights if you're not on payroll. And so asking folks to pay their interns is about asking them to respect their rights, but also to invest in them, because when internships are paid, oftentimes they have a lot more structure and they see the interns as more valuable. So the interns are invested in more, whether it comes through time and like outright teaching or just the paycheck at the end of the week.
Yes. Well, listen, Regina, I want to thank you so much for making some time to bring us some more depth about the issue of unpaid internships. You know, I know that students are kind of, you know, the little people in the equation when we're talking about organizing and the labor movement, especially sort of the resurgence of labor organizing over the past couple of years. But it's very important that we keep college students and students in general in mind when we're talking about fair compensation, safe working conditions, and, you know, the economic and sort of racial and gendered inequities that come along with these internships, paid and unpaid. So we certainly appreciate the work, and congratulations on getting that funding for Hill Interns again. And I see also from your Twitter page that you guys are also pushing the Biden administration a bit on funding for interns. So you for funding for interns at the White House. So that is awesome work, and congratulations, and thank you all for what you do.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for having me.
You guys, we've been speaking with Regina Monge. Regina, she is at the organization Pay Our Interns. She handles the external relations. She's the external relations lead for Pay Our Interns. And again, Pay Our Interns is a leading group fighting for an increase in the amount of paid internships across all work sectors. Yo, kids getting ready to go to college. A couple of y'all got kids in college. So, make sure that the kids can negotiate from a position of power as best as they can. I know they need the opportunities. And that's sort of like the catch-22 about internships. My internships really did help to, elevate me to an opportunity where I could graduate sort of to a paid position. I think I started off as an intern at Power 99. I think I interned for a couple months and then they hired me, but I think they was paying me like $6 an hour. So, I wasn't exactly rolling in dough, but it was a shot. But the only reason I had that chance to have that internship is because my mother co-signed for a student loan for me so I could live on campus that summer and not trip about rent, et cetera, et cetera. But again, you got to have one parent that's in a position to do that, at least one. And so anyway, college is fucking crazy. Like we talked about this recently, y'all. College is scammery. There's a scamish element to it. And this is another way that the system gets rigged by making sure that white children from privileged backgrounds have access to powerful internships, which of course translate 2 times out of 3 into employment, whereas poor kids from less privileged backgrounds either seldom get those opportunities or really can't afford to accept them. So it's kind of shitty. I digress. Speaking of shitty, speaking of kind of fucking shitty, very actually fucking shitty today, y'all. The world of hip hop and rap music is mourning the loss of Earl Simmons. Y'all know him as DMX, Darkman X. Lost his fight today at a White Plains hospital. DMX suffered a heart attack about a week ago, and according to reports, has been in a vegetative state. There have been a number of rumors flying over the past several days about DMX is already dead. His manager, Steve Rifkin, got on Instagram Live last night and said, no, DMX is still alive. But he cautioned that the family had some very tough decisions to make. And either those decisions got made today or DMX passed on his own. But either way, the hip hop world is really mourning the loss of a titan. And, hold on, let me go to the chat here, y'all, because I'm trying to see where y'all weigh in on DMX's legacy. Because first of all, I'm not finna argue with nobody under the age of 30 about DMX being a legend or not. And I say this as a person who was not even really all that into DMX, right? Like DMX was at the same time as, when Jay was at, close to his peak and Nas was at his peak and Outkast was at their peak and Snoop, like DMX was in there. Like there was a whole bunch of big rappers in the mix when DMX was large. But DMX and Rough Riders was large as fuck. So let us make no mistakes about that. Now, me personally, and again, this is just my personal perspective. I always respected DMX as an MC, but his lyrics, his whole content was just far too niggerish for my personal liking. And every song he made about women, he was always, very dismissive of the women. Like he could kind of, take a leave abroad. But y'all also know in what's the song he did with Cisco with the bitches want from me? Somebody let me know. When he started going through all the names like Keisha, Talisha, Shonda, Melisha. Now I did feel a certain way when he said about 3 Kims. I was like, you Negroes, and you womanizing. So anyway, that's just my personal take on DMX, but I never had anything against him per se. He just wasn't my guy at the time, but I knew people who absolutely worshipped at the altar of DMX and Rough Riders. So I understand how people are taking it very hard, but y'all, this brings up, hold on, let me go to the chat. Hold on. We do have some video. You know what? Let's do this. I'm gonna hop in the chat in a second. Tunde, if you could please, could you run that C3 montage, guys? This is like a montage of clips. Pardon me. A couple of them are from Hip Hop DX. A couple of them are from a Twitter user named King Malcolm. But these were scenes outside of the hospital in White Plains while DMX was hospitalized again for about the past week. His fans showed up, showed out. They brought the bikes out, man. They came out for X. They was singing his lyrics, playing his music, and praying for DMX. Tunde, let's take a look at that montage of the vigil at and outside of DMX's hospital over the past several days.
Healed in Jesus' name. So God, we thank you for all that he poured into everyone else. On today,
we set ourselves aside and we're here to
pray for him. So God, we ask right now that as we stand in front of White Plains Hospital, that you would go into his room, that you would speak into his ears, that you would speak to his spirit.
Your love. This is why I pray. You let me touch so many people. So good.
Listen to the words.
With so many children. I never thought that I would. And I couldn't take credit for the love they get. Because it all comes from you, Lord.
Of course, DMX's fans are devastated. I'm looking in the comments a little bit, and Jericho Bull said DMX in the Rough Riders videos was the first time he saw Black folks on motorcycles and ATVs on TV, which I absolutely co-sign that. I mean, we know that bike culture, Black bike culture, is very regionalized and very local, right? Not to say that cats wasn't riding motorcycles before Rough Riders anthem came out. There was, but it really got brought to the forefront with the videos and everything like that about Black bike culture. Thank you so much, Tasia. Oh my God, how kind of you. Who else? One of y'all said in the comments, nobody's perfect. Listen, I get it, y'all. Nobody's perfect. Oh, my favorite rappers are problematic. That's not true. Hold on. Redman is not problematic. So let me defend Redman right here. And Andre and Big Boy also not problematic. Now, again, DMX's problems, I don't necessarily fault DMX for his problems, y'all. We know that DMX was incarcerated a number of times for a variety of things, but do y'all remember, are y'all of the same age where y'all remember where the New York Police Department actually had a squad targeting rappers, right? Old Dirty Bastard used to talk about this because I mean, shit, they almost killed Old Dirty. I mean, you ain't gotta believe me. There's YouTube videos on that where Old Dirty Bastard is openly talking about that. But all the New York rappers used to deal with that shit. And DMX was of that specific era where the cops was gunning at him very hard. And we know he had issues with substance abuse. That has somewhat been speculated. The hip hop police, thank you, Courtney SLP. Yes, the hip hop police, 100%. That's right. And we know X had a problem with drugs, right? Say it was the yak. I mean, he was on that yayo. And y'all, I started thinking about like how many artists somewhat recently, like we have lost from drugs. And I'm talking about Black artists. I mean, white, we missed the white ones too, but I'm talking about the Black artists. DMX dead from an overdose. Prince dead from an overdose. Michael Jackson dead from an overdose. Pimp C dead from an overdose. Like, I mean, y'all, we need to have a whole conversation about drugs and education. Now, when I say drugs and education, what I mean by that is people need to be aware of what drugs you can take with what other drugs. And I think that if Americans had this kind of drug education, we would see far fewer people dying as a result of overdoses. Do you know how many people die from, well, this is what Pimp C died of. Pimp C was mixing that codeine and he was drinking. You can't mix opiates and alcohol, man. Please Tell the kids in 12th grade right now that you cannot mix opiates and alcohol. You will die. DMX, if we're operating off the assumption that perhaps DMX died of a cocaine overdose or some sort of, cocaine-induced health complication, I lost a family member to a cocaine overdose. They were 41 when they died. And almost the exact same thing happened to them. All of their organs started shutting down. And let me tell that this is for all y'all old cokeheads. Now, I don't know if we got any old cokeheads in the chat, but if you know an old cokehead, please tell that old cokehead that they need to calm the fuck down, because your heart can take that coke in 20 and 30s. When you get to 40 plus, your heart can't take that coke like that. And if you still out here sniffing coke or doing cocaine related activities, you need to cut that shit out immediately, because you will die. I'm not even trying to be funny here, y'all. Too many people is in their middle ages thinking that they can still party like they was 25. And you know what? You will be dead at 50, 52, 55. You will die. And I'm not even kidding, y'all. I hope that we actually do find out what happened to DMX, because I think this is a conversation that needs to be had. There are a lot of Black people, and I know we have more than Black people joining us in the conversation and part of our Burn It Down family. I understand that, but as a Black person, speaking from the perspective of a Black person, I need middle-aged Black people to chill the fuck out. Okay, y'all have to cut it out. And I'm not saying y'all. I know y'all. Well, I don't know about all y'all. Some of y'all could very much be out here partying with the cocaine at 40 plus. You should probably not do that. You should definitely not do that, y'all. Stick to weed. Who said that? Leslie, preach. DJ Screw, thank you very much, Pookie Wood. Haven't seen you in the chat for a second, Pookie Wood. Yes, DJ Screw also died of an overdose, y'all. So, shit. Whitney, we done lost too many. And Alicia, I saw your comment, dear. Alicia said trauma. Yeah, y'all, the trauma. Trauma is what pushes people to these harder drugs. And I understand that. And I'm sure DMX experienced a tremendous amount of trauma. Just number one, the wildness of being famous. Actually, I want us to take a peek actually at one of a very, 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 very bright moment for DMX. This was floating around Twitter. You may or may have not seen it, but this is a clip of unknown year. I'm not really sure what year that this was filmed, but it was DMX meeting Rakim for the first time and just all the way, just fanboying over Rakim, which, all of us of a certain age absolutely understand why DMX would fanboy all over Rakim. Tunde, can we take a look at that clip, y'all? This is DMX meeting his rap idol, Rakim Allah.
I don't fuck with too many of you. That niggas, and we got the banging the song out right now. And we got the banging the song out. It's real. Let's get this, man. Let's get this.
I want to take a picture.
I don't even be smiling, bitch. I'm cheating like fuck. Real.
DMX, man. What did Rakim mean to you in hip hop? What does he mean to you?
Rakim, growing up, right, there was always a conflict on who was the best rapper. It was between Big Daddy Kane and Rakim. I always went with Rakim. Always, you know what I'm saying? Brother was serious, you know what I'm saying? He didn't compromise his lyrics, you know what I mean? Went hard and didn't even curse. That's the shit that put the hell like, wow, this nigga spit some gangster shit, didn't even curse. Kane got on this sexy chocolate princess talking and shit. I mean, he just lost that right. Too much, you know what I'm saying? I always wrote with you, man. Always, man. The biggest fan. I'll spit the whole motherfucking microphone beat right now. fiend. Before I became a teen, built a microphone instead of cones and ice cream music orientated. So we knew how I was originated, feeling like pieces of puzzle, complicated. I grabbed the mic and tried to say yes, so all they trying to take it. They said I'm too small, smooth. Cause I don't get upset. I think the whole speaker pull a plug, then I jet back to the lab. Without a mic to grab, and then I had all rounds I had. When after the other one, then that's the brother's done. And this opposite. Much? What?
Keep going.
I fuck with him, man. Hard body, man. Hard body, man. It's an honor, man. It's an honor.
Day one, man.
Now, for my real rap heads out there, y'all understand the gravity of DMX telling Rakim that, hey, at your height, it was between Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, and a lot of niggas was rocking with Big Daddy Kane. Nigga, I was rocking with you. That's huge. Like, that's big. That was one generation of hip hop paying homage to the previous generation of hip hop. And DMX was always foremostly a student of this. When I say game, I hate to even say game because there's rapping and then there's the industry, right? And rap is an absolute skill. It is an art form. It has been bastardized. Like, too many people out here just think that they can just rap. And sometimes I be wondering as an old lady, like, what the fuck? What's the measure of quality, children, are we using here for rappers? Because someone could have a hit and someone could sell a lot of records, but I don't mean that someone could rap. And DMX was one of those rappers who could write, rap, and sell. Not everybody can do that. I wanted to take another quick look at this clip. I was looking at DMX interviews today, and it was too many to choose from, actually. If you go to the DMX Vivo page, there's actually a video of an interview. It's pretty short. It's only like a couple minutes. It's like, just a little quick clip from like 24/7 Hip Hop that they did. And again, pardon me, it was an older interview, but they didn't put the year on the interview. But basically, DMX was shitting on New York radio personalities for not playing his records. And he'd be like, yo, but anytime they see me out and about, it's they all, you know what I'm saying? But they don't want to play my records. And he basically said, you're not hurting me, you hurting the fans. You hurting fans of good music by not playing my song. So there's that. But here's a clip that he gave. He and GQ magazine sort of did a breakdown of a lot of his biggest hits. And this is a clip of him talking about the Rough Riders anthem, which initially, apparently, he was not interested in doing. But we know how history ended up favorably shining on him for that song, which really birthed, the start of like the Rough Riders era. Their portion of hip hop and rap music, the Rough Riders era, late 90s, early 2000s. But DMX talked about like how seriously he takes the music making process. Tunde, if we could look at that clip, please.
I got a huge weight on my shoulders. You know what I'm saying? I'm responsible for my music. You know what I'm saying? And each album has to do many things. Many things. I take that into consideration as I'm recording them, as I'm doing them. You know what I'm saying? I don't take that responsibility lightly.
Stop, drop, shut them down, open up shop. Oh.
That was Swiss Beats' first record, and that was one of the fastest songs I wrote. I wrote it in about 15 minutes, and I actually didn't want to write it. I didn't want to do that song. The beat was simple and repetitive, you know what I mean? And the flow I came up with was just like so many other songs with so much substance. I was like, the song is like fucking ABCs, like elementary. Niggas wanna die, niggas wanna die, niggas wanna like.
All I know is pain, all I feel is rain. How can I maintain the badness on my brain?
I'm glad I did do it. You know what I mean? I listened. This was like, yo, just do it, just do this. All right. And it worked out. I wrote 2 other songs that same night. I wrote Fucking With D and Let Me Fly that same night. So it was like, all right, I can do this. Like, all right, you want it? Here, whatever. I would never revisit it because, we did a remix to it, but like, I wouldn't do another version of it because it is its own thing. You know what I'm saying? That was Wire's idea. We always, we fuck with the hood anyway, you know what I'm saying? He was like, yo, we gotta get the bikes in there and do this. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. That was my second video. The first video, Get At Me Dog in the Tunnel, crazy. You know You know what I mean? I was like, yo, we gotta take it to the streets. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Let's do it, y'all. DMX there speaking with GQ Magazine about how the Rough Riders anthem even came to be. Thank you, Talisha Conklin. Thank you for the love, honey. And listen, again, like I said, it's only right to even, you have to pay homage, man. You got to acknowledge a legend when they pass. And I'm keeping it a buck with y'all. I owned 0 DMX records, not a one. I respected him as an MC, but he just wasn't my guy. But again, I didn't dislike him at all. And let me tell y'all a quick story. So there was in 1997. Damn, I should be able to remember the name of this tour, but I can't. Listen to this lineup, okay? Listen to this lineup. It was Def Squad, which is Redman, Eric Sermon, Keith Murray. I think it might have been EPMD too. Nas. I think Mobb Deep was there. But see, someone told me that this was a Def Jam thing, so maybe Mobb Deep wasn't there, but DMX was definitely there. And DMX was the closer. Okay, so this was a tour. I went to Baltimore. I believe it was the Paradox. Where are my Paradox people at? This was 97. So I was like 19, right? And so I'm from the suburbs. I grew up in between DC and Baltimore, right? But I made it a point to never be scared, okay? I'm going to go hang out in Baltimore and DC because if I just stay out here in this county, I'm going to be a county ass broad. And I don't want to be a county ass broad because county people kind of be a little scary when they go to the city. I digress. So I went to this show, Dolo. None of my friends wanted to go with me. I was about 19. It's about 1997. So I drove my little Mazda 626 downtown Baltimore in proximity. I don't even think it was, was Raven Stadium alive? Maybe they was building Raven Stadium. It was in proximity to Raven Stadium. I don't even know Raven Stadium, but Camden Yards is right there. But anyway, so I parked my little Mazda 626. I get down there early. I see the niggas on the tour bus, right? And I'm in community college. I'm not in radio. I'm not in the industry. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just there as a fan. And so I had my little, no limit, like camouflage, crop top. I had on a skirt. I had on these big heels. I mean, I was looking cute at 19. I'm sure I was looking extremely adorable. Niggas was like, yo, what's up, ma? Yo, I need to bring you back to New York with me, ma. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, okay, y'all, I'm going aside. So anyway, going to the show. And I do this. I go to the shows early when I was a kid. Go to shows early so I could post up in my spot, right? So I could find a good spot. I could see the stage. I could see everything I need to see. So I'm straight. So I always got to the shit mad early. So I walk in the club and all of a sudden these girls start like woofing at me, right? Okay. So I start woofing back, right? Knowing full well I wanted no parts of hands with any of these Baltimore City girls. I knew that for a fact. So anyway, so these girls start barking at me. And so I start barking back and these dudes get in between us and they separate us or whatever. So I didn't see these girls again until later. So the concert goes off without a hitch. Redman, Nas, Keith Murray, all these niggas burn it down. DMX gets on stage and all of a sudden niggas go bananas. They went so bananas. I said, I have to leave. Like I had been, well, maybe that hadn't happened yet. I almost got crushed to death at a Redman concert, but that happened later. So that had not yet happened. I'll tell y'all that story another time. But so the shit got extra rowdy when DMX came on and he was the closer, right? So he was closing out the show. I said, you know what, bet it's a good time for me to leave. So I'm standing right there at the security gate, right in front of the stage. So I just asked the security man, can you just please pick me up and lift me over here so I can walk out the door and leave, right? And that's exactly what happened. I'm drenched, covered with sweat. As I'm walking out the door, I hear them same girls who was barking at me earlier, right? They were like, yeah, bitch, you better leave. I said, yup, you right. Let me get the fuck up out of here because I'm down here by myself and it is more than one of these city girls. And these city girls, more than likely, was going to fuck me up. I had good sense. I had sense enough to exit the situation. But I said all that to say, rest in peace, DMX. Baltimore loved him tremendously. I know DMX has a Baltimore connection. I am not exactly sure what it is. If y'all know what it is, drop it in the comments. Huge energy dude. Yes, he was Dr. Claus 77. Listen, the Rough Riders, the people that were fans of DMX were serious. Very, 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 very serious about DMX. His pen game was great. He was an actor, a pretty decent actor, brought amazing energy. And, he was from that era of hip hop where skill mattered. I used to hear stories about like Jay-Z, Busta Rhymes, DMX. Like they would show up at each other's high schools and like battle each other in the cafeteria. I mean, it was real. Like rap used to be a competitive sport where you actually had to be good. And DMX absolutely met each and every single one of those criteria. A worldwide star. Oh, did everybody hear you say that, Tunde?
Yeah, I think he actually spent some time in some children's homes in Baltimore before New York.
Baltimore, his very first single, Get At Me, Dog. Let me holler at you, y'all, in Baltimore. He was born in Baltimore, Chuck Diesel? Is that right? Oh, what's up, River Run? You guys are amazing. Thank y'all. Thank you guys so much for your support. What's up, Liu Kang? I see you. What's up, Black Magic? I see you. What's up? Who else? Natalie A. What's up, Natalie A? You a new Patreoner. I appreciate y'all. Schultzy 100. I see you in there, Magic. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. As someone like, I'll be 43 this year. DMX was 50. Shit. It's always sobering when people in your generation die young. And I'm extremely sorry that his family is having to deal with this, having to grieve him so publicly in this way. So y'all, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. We had to say something and do a little something for DMX because he made a mark, y'all. It wasn't a little mark. It was a big, big mark on hip hop. And I hope that, we sort of examine all the things that befell DMX, He shouldn't have been locked up all them times for that stupid shit that he was locked up for. Who knows what kind of effect that had on him, right? He should have been able to get substance abuse treatment outside of the carceral setting, right? Like, there's a lot of ways that DMX was failed, and I hope that we can sort of glean some lessons from that. It's fucked up. Never back down from a battle. What's up, Latif? Yeah, like I said, DMX was from that generation where rapping was a sport, and nigga, you had to aspire to be Jordan. Okay, you had to try to be great. You couldn't just be mediocre and acceptable. Did you hear the way he even described the Rough Riders anthem? He was like, that shit was like some ABC shit, 1, 2, 3 shit. That shit was, wasn't no substance. But at least, again, he had the foresight to understand that he could dumb it down for the masses in order to make it a commercial success. And that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, we're going to lift up the memory of DMX all weekend. What did I see? Somebody said they was going to watch Belly tonight. Yeah, go watch Belly. Go watch Cradle to the Grave. Go watch Romeo Must Die. Again, and I have to keep it real with y'all because I'm not here to be on some performative shit. Like we doing this because I respected him as an MC. I never liked Belly. I didn't like the movie Belly. I thought Belly was weird. I dug the way it was shot. I think that was Hype Williams, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, Hype Williams directed that. It's a gorgeously shot movie. And it also has its place in the hip hop movie pantheon, I suppose. It was never one of my personal favorites. But a lot of people did fuck with Belly. So you saw Belly in the movies as a kid. I saw Belly in the movies as a kid too. I I was not impressed with Belly, but again, a lot of people were. And that's okay, guys. It's okay. Thank you very much, Talisha. You are so wonderful and generous. Talisha, I'm trying to be on Progressive Queens. Hit me up, my baby. Fellas and ladies and non-binary folks, I'm out. It's Friday. Just a quick reminder. Please, COVID is still out here jumping on the people. I don't want it to jump on you. So wash your hands, wear your mask, social distance. Don't let COVID get to you. Y'all niggas better get COVID off you so you can live long, long life. COVID is still jumping on people. I don't want it to jump on you. All right, that's all I got to say. Oh, and I think we're going to do AMA next Friday. So we're going to put a post on Patreon for the Patreoners, and please start dropping your questions for the AMA. I want us to have a good AMA, y'all. God damn it. Ask me some good questions out this bitch. That's why we're going to put it up and leave a week opportunity for questions to be asked, so we can have a nice family gathering. Come here, family. Ooh, y'all so nice. Anyway, you guys are fantastic. Thank you all so much for your generous super chat donation today. I'd like to thank everybody that works on this show. Tunde Ogun Falaju, Molly Shaw, and Jean-Vieve Montanar. Jean-Vieve, excellent questions today, hon, for the Pay Our Interns. I certainly appreciate your contribution. Listen, everybody, I will see y'all niggas on Tuesday. Y'all have a good one. See y'all later. Bye-bye. What's up, Black Magic?